Live. It's Mitch Goldberg. It's 4:30. It's time for Be the Boss of Your Money. Every single day I come out here to find you a theme. It could be the theme of the day. It could be the theme of the week, the theme of the moment. Um, it could be a long-lasting theme. But themes are important because I think what investors need is not just guidance, because the old tried and true guidance, like stay the course, invest for the long term, dollar cost averaging, things like that. That is great in good times, but in bad times, people need, I think, hand holding, or they need reinforcement. That's the word I'm looking for. They need reinforcement to stick to their plan. And if you don't have a plan, well, then you're not going to stick with it because there's nothing to stick with. And that means you're going to be doing spontaneous, impulsive things with your money. And we know that that's not a good recipe for success. And this show is called Be the Boss of Your Money. And be the boss means control, right? When you're the boss, you get to control. Um, so that's what the show is about. It's about you taking control of your money. That's what the show's about. Be the Boss of Your Money was founded to help you make better financial decisions. And, I've got over 30 years of experience working directly with clients, retail clients. Um, I've seen a lot of them overcome challenges. I want to share how with you. I've seen a lot of people make mistakes, including myself. So I want to share this information with you because I want to make you better with your money. I want to make you as good as you could be with your money. We could all be better with our money. We could all, if you are better with your money, it means you have more money in your life, more security in your life, less stress in your life, probably more, opportunities coming up in your life. That's what the show's all about. Better with your money means a lot of things like more opportunities. It doesn't just mean more money. If it was just about more money, we could just stop spending on things, live in a dungeon, and that's the end of it. That's not what this is about. We live, but do you live to spend, or do you spend to live, or a combination of both? Usually, it's a combination of both, and I try to get people to see how or why they're overspending. We're not investing enough. Uh, that's just one of the things we talk about here on this show. So anyway, what's the big deal today? The big theme: food. The cost of food is soaring, and it's not so much, oh, food is up. I mean, it's, oh, this could be dangerous. Like, people could revolt. I mean, the French Revolution was over food. Luckily, we're in a country now where people aren't going hungry, but food insecurity is a big deal. Food insecurity is on the rise. And nutrition is probably going to suffer because people have to step down to eating carbs and rice and beans as opposed to high quality proteins. There's also a disease, a bird flu disease that's like wiping out something like 29 million chickens, I read this morning. And it's a very serious avian flu that just could literally wipe out our chicken population. Chicken is a huge source of protein for this country, for the whole world. That's what happens when you overfarm and all the animals are the same and all the animals are protected. So when a new virus comes in, there's no immunity. There's a lot to think about. Ukraine and Russia, especially Ukraine. Ukraine is the breadbasket of Europe. But between those two countries, it's something like 35-40% of all grains in the world come from Ukraine and Russia. And Ukraine said that their exports of grains are down by at least 50% this year. I could see it getting worse. This is a really serious thing, and it's I think going to break out a lot more. Besides you hearing about it, I think it's going to break out into the geopolitical arena. Just what I think. But this has ramifications on your money and what you're spending on, um, how much you're spending, and it has ramifications on companies like, stocks like DoorDash, for example, restaurants, cruises, Disney, which relies on tourism. It's just getting more expensive to go away. And I'm just wondering, at what point do consumers revolt? Demand is tamped down, and you see companies take hits to their earnings or their forecast, and they slash their forecast, or companies report earnings and revenues worse than expected. We're seeing downward revisions right now in corporate earnings, Q1 corporate earnings. We're seeing misses, I should say. We're seeing downward revisions for Q2, which we're in now, and I expect we'll see them for the rest of the year. So, what does this mean for the stock market? Fed's raising rates. It could mean that if demand goes down enough, that could bring down inflation. I mean, there's so many things going on. The end of globalization. Globalization means basically we shift um, we shift productive resources to areas that could produce what we want when we want it for the lowest price. So therefore, we manufacture in Vietnam and China. We mine in other countries. That's globalization, right? But when nations don't get along, globalization becomes a hindrance, not a help. And that's where we are now. So it's a really fickle market. I could think of all the reasons to invest in a lot of the stocks that I look at up across the board today. So many stocks are up, but they were down, last week. So I think people looking for this moment where, this is it. Just go out and buy everything and you'll be okay. I don't think we ever have a moment like that. I just think that if you're an investor and you're investing for the long term, you're going to be investing through a very unusual, unknown, uncomfortable, treacherous cycle of the end of globalization, at least as far as we know it, and food insecurity, and just overall the cost of doing business is higher, the cost of being a consumer is higher, and standard of living is going lower. That's the negative base case, by the way. I don't think the government has the desire to dole out more stimulus checks. The Federal Reserve does not have the desire to stimulate the economy. That's why they're raising interest rates. It's raising rates, and it's going to start letting bonds roll off its balance sheet to about $1.2 trillion per year. Remember, the Fed was buying $120 billion of bonds every month, 80 billion treasuries, 40 billion mortgage-backed securities. Now it wants to get rid of $95 billion a month. So say about 60 or 65 billion of treasuries, 30, 35 billion of mortgage bonds every month. So the Fed will take longer to get out of the stimulus it's provided than it took to get into it. That could change. And then there are some people who think inflation has peaked and we're going to probably see it come down. But you have to understand that even if inflation comes down, the key is inflation was down, let's say down here, and it's risen all the way up here. So maybe it won't stay in that trend and go all the way up here. Like you can't even see my hand in the screen, right? But once it's up here, it could stay up here. This is a permanent new base of inflation. I don't think we're going back down to here. So it's a permanent expense on people. But inflation has other ramifications. The standard deduction, which the standard deduction for this year, for 2022, not for 2021 that you're just filing your taxes. Today's tax day, as you know, but it's expected to be for individual 12,500, head of household 18,500, and joint 25,900. It could go up 8% next year. So we could see it, hit 27,000, maybe a little bit more. That's for that. And Social Security could get raises also. So if we do see deflation, these deductions and Social Security payments typically don't go down. They only go up because inflation goes up. But if we have low inflation, maybe that'll help some people stay ahead of the inflation curve. We'll see. But it's an uncertain time, and I've never seen more uncertainty than I have now. let's roll the intro. We're going to talk about the day's events, keep you focused, and I'd love to hear your comments. So, I'm sorry, I can't say that. I have to say, I'd love to hear or see your questions. I'd love to see your questions in the comments. That's what I meant to say. Any words of wisdom, words of encouragement in the comments are always appreciated. Give us a thumbs up, an applause, a heart, whatever, a wow, depending on which platform you're watching on. We're streaming now to Twitter, to YouTube, to Facebook, to LinkedIn. And I'd love to see you out there. And, if you give it a like, I'll be able to see who you are. And if you don't want to, that's okay too. Your anonymity is always important. If it's important to you, it's important to me. So let's roll the intro, and here we go. All right, we're back. Thank you so much for joining me. Again, I'm Mitch Goldberg. We're just getting started. You're watching Be the Boss of Your Money. We're talking about food. We're talking about the big themes of the day. All right, so let's take a look at some of the headlines today that you should be aware of. I don't want to just look at this yet. Let me make this a little bit bigger so you could see it better. But check this out. Price of corn hits 9-year high. A surge in commodities continues. This is in part because of the war in Ukraine. Again, Ukraine is like the breadbasket for Europe, major food supplier. Okay, agricultural commodities. All right. So what we're seeing is food costs go up all over the world. Natural gas, by the way, which obviously is not food, but that's almost $8 per cubic 1,000 cubic feet. Okay. Price of corn hits a 9-year high. It's not just corn though. All right. Let's take a look at this one. U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen. I'm still used to saying Federal Reserve Chair Yellen, but it's Secretary Yellen to meet with top finance ministers to address global food crisis. You know what? You know what it is. Um, Central governments are starting to. You know what it is? Central governments are starting to freak the f out over the cost of food. Like, high food prices causes revolutions, rebellions. It's one thing to be missing out on luxuries or privacy, but when it comes down to food, that is a really serious thing. And this is the main reason why President Biden's approval ratings have plunged, and he's just has so little. He's just at this point in his presidency, he's even more unpopular by about 1 point. I saw in a poll over the weekend than Trump was at this point in his presidency. Um, Inflation is a horrible thing. Look, I'm not getting into this like, oh, he caused it. Of course, it's Biden, the Democrats. No, no, that's not what the show is about. Food is rising in Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Germany, China, Brazil. It's food prices are going up everywhere. This is not some uniquely American problem. This is this is what happens when there's a drought in large swaths of the United States. This is what happens when Governor Abbott of Texas decides to amp up to a crazy amount inspections of all trucks coming into Texas, so he stops everything, which is causing food to rot in trucks, creating massive delays. But then the inflation gets even worse for food, and then people blame the president. Okay, and then we have to also try to get food from other parts of the country, which could be further away. There are a lot of things going on here, a lot of players involved, and everybody is trying to game the system for their own political ambitions. I should say everybody. What I see around the world, though, like Ukraine, there's obviously a horrible war going on. But when you're a food country, a food supplier, an agricultural country, agrarian, That's the word I was looking for. I want to use bigger words today, so I'm going to use agrarian instead of agricultural. Okay, so that just kills you. The price of food just skyrockets. By the way, Eddie, I see you out there, so thank you for the thumbs up, man. I really appreciate you joining us. All right, so let's keep going. I want to show you some markets. That's not what I want to do. That's what I wanted to do. Okay. So the Dow was down 39, was down more before. It was up and down all day long, but markets closed very flat today. Nasdaq, which is down like 2% plus a day every day almost, it seems, down only fractionally today. S&P 500 just about flat. Gold was up a touch. Oil, which has been on a tear from about 94 the barrel to 107, slowed down today. The 10-year yield hit 2.85. It was, I think, at 287 or 288, but still, highest it's been in years. The VIX, that's this one over here, VIX. Um, the VIXy is down today. Just shows you that traders are not as worried. They're not paying up for products to hedge their portfolios. So that's okay. That's overall a good thing. The Russell 2000, the Rust 2K, down 0.74. So worst one of the averages, the Russell 2000. If you don't follow it, you should. That's the small cap benchmark, small cap stocks. Okay. And let's take a look at bonds. We're talking about bonds, but yields continue to climb. The 2-year is okay, 244. The 10-year 285. So it's a pretty nice spread now, 0.41 percent. That it was inverted. So we're not in an inverted yield curve. We were in one for a very short amount of time. I don't think for the 2 days or so that we had an inverted yield curve that it means much with the 2s and the 10s, the 2-year and the 10-year treasury yield. That's when the 2-year yield is typically lower than the 10-year yield, but sometimes the 2-year yield on the 2-year treasury bond rather, climbs above the 10-year bond. When that happens, it's called an inverted yield curve. It usually portends a recession over the near term. I don't think it's something to worry about right now because it lasted for so short amount of a time. Let's take a look at some crypto. So Bitcoin back above 40,000. I know it was in the 39,000 range over the weekend because I was following it. Mostly an okay day though for crypto. No major moves anywhere that I'm looking at. So, what is crypto and NFTs? I heard the NFT, not heard, I read about it. The NFT of the very first tweet that Jack Dorsey sent out, who founded Twitter, was worth like millions and millions of dollars, like 40 some odd million maybe, and now it's worth like next to nothing. So much of this stuff is such a tulip mania bubble about to burst if it's not already bursting. So you have unique software with unique code that's unique to one particular project that when you play it up on a computer monitor, the output, the UI, it shows a picture of an ape with a banana. And that's an NFT that's worth a lot of money. I think that wears off a lot of things. I'm not saying NFTs don't have a purpose or a place, but I think a lot of this NFT stuff is really gotten out of hand, and I think it's I think it's downright silly. I also think that for crypto as well. I'm not a crypto bear, nor am I a crypto bull. I'm just waiting to see what the real use cases are for crypto. That's what I'm waiting for, and I'm seeing some use cases yet. So as of now, but I'm not entirely convinced that it's the biggest thing since sliced bread. And we have stable coins coming out. And if the US dollar if the US government introduces a stable coin that's legal tender, that would probably attract a lot more than other cryptos. Look, the point of a crypto is that it's anonymous. If you feel that central governments are not being good stewards of your capital, like the US government or the Japanese central government central banks, they're printing so much currency that they're devaluing people's money, or you could get locked out of SWIFT, or the government puts hold on your cash at the bank. It was it really your money in the first place. And with crypto, nobody could touch your money. So you put your money into crypto, and nobody could see it, touch it, find it. That's part of the allure, part of the draw to crypto. Is it worth it? I don't know, because now you're not even in the U.S. financial system anymore. But I could see some advantages and disadvantages. Only time will tell. And I know there's somebody watching this who's a total crypto bull who thinks I'm crazy for not even being totally bullish about it. But you know, I'm willing to be proven wrong. I've written about crypto. I've spoken about crypto. I know a lot about crypto, but I'm still not convinced that just because it's a unique set of electrons and computer code, no matter how unique it is, I don't think that automatically makes it valuable. As even if it's a rare thing, people are clamoring for things that have limits in terms of how much can be produced, though, and that's part of the allure again of crypto. Anyway, we digress. Okay, um, I want to take you to some of the stocks that we follow here. Okay, I'm going to change my screen in a second, but I want to get to this first. I want to go to consumer staples. Okay, let me put you up here. All right. So forget Constellation Brands. It's a discretionary company more than a consumer staples. But General Mills off a little bit. Mondelez off. CVS. These are companies that are suffering, like B&G Foods. These are companies that are seeing, they're in the food business. So obviously they're seeing massive food inflation. And are they able to raise prices to consumers? Conagra. Are they, what is the deal? Hershey, Walmart. Can these companies raise prices to compensate for what they're paying in inflation? Look at Pepsi. I mean, every Pepsi bottle takes petroleum and energy to make the bottle. They have to get the water, they have to get the sugar, and whatever else goes into soda, flavorings, colors, etc. So this is ground zero for where you could decide if companies can raise prices quickly enough to compensate for their own producer prices. Okay. So that's just one thing I want to show you. And we're running out of time here, so I want to go back to another topic. Okay. So this is big news. I'm just going by this from the Hill. Okay. But you could look this up anywhere, but the Supreme Court won't hear the challenge to the SALT tax deduction. So let me talk to you about this for a few minutes, because this is personal finance and this affects you right away. All right. I'm just going to close out the whole screen. If you don't know what SALT stands for, I'm talking about the stuff you sprinkle on your food. Okay. SALT stands for state and local taxes. So you've got your state income tax, and then you've got your local tax, like your real estate tax. And some states like New York, New Jersey, Maryland, California, particularly New Jersey, New York, California, I want to focus on, they have allowed you to deduct those taxes from your federal income tax. So it makes those taxes in a lot of ways cheaper. Now, one problem with a tax deduction on a product or service, it makes that product or service more expensive. I'll give you an example. This is my opinion. If you said from now on all college expenses are deductible, it'll colleges will just raise their price because they'll know you've got the extra money left over from your deduction, right? If you give 5% more student loans to students, colleges will just raise their prices by 5%. Deductions could make things more expensive. So because of the deductions on salt in, let's say, where I live in New York, it's made things just more expensive because, well, you're getting a deduction on something, which means you can afford to pay more on other things. It creates imbalances. I think it's a little bit of I think maybe it was too much of a good thing, but now we're stuck with it and we live with it. So now that people in New York, for example, lost their salt deduction or a lot of it, you could only use up to $10,000 for your salt deduction. And how many people living in New York pay more than $10,000 in just real estate taxes alone, or just state income taxes alone? A lot. All right, a real lot. And if you combine those two, then it's like everybody. I understand what you're saying. These are first world problems to have. But when they were deductible so long against your federal taxes, these costs have been able to go up more. Well, you get a deduction for it. So if we raise it, it doesn't really sting because you get to deduct it. But you lose most of this or a lot of this deduction. So the SALT states sued to so they could either eliminate or raise the cap of $10,000. The Democrats have already in the House of Representatives have already passed a bill to raise the SALT uh, deduction to $80,000, which basically includes like just about everybody in the state, everywhere, in all the SALT states. So, but the Supreme Court, it's not that they said no; they just refused to hear it, which is basically saying it's going to stand as the lower court suggested or allowed it to stand, which means it remains at $10,000. So the highest court in the land has spoken, and that's pretty much it. If you buy a house, you have to take this into consideration. What does the house really cost you? What's the cash flow like? It was different when there was a big deduction for your state tax, your state income tax, and your real estate taxes. You could deduct that, and you come up with an estimate of your cash flow needs, etc. But that changes because now it'll cost you more to own your home. Yet it could make home values go down if it makes owning a home and paying for a home more expensive. There's a lot to be learned. I think with low interest rates, you haven't really seen a problem with the elimination or the cap on the SALT deduction of $10,000. But I think now that mortgage rates are going up, I think we'll see how how this works. We'll see how it works into it. But these are the kind of things that I look for in doing my analysis for needs, for clients, for cash flow, for how much will they have left to save, to invest. All of these things are important, and trying to guess what's going to happen with the SALT deduction is really a fool's errand now that the Supreme Court has ruled that they're going to let it stand. So don't be buying a house based on you thinking that this deduction is going to somehow magically come back. It's very unlikely. Don't plan it. Don't plan on it. If it does come back, great, but don't plan on it. All right, so that's my story for the day. I think we're just about out of time. So thank you very much for joining me. I hope wherever you're watching from, you're having a nice day. If you're on vacation, enjoy. If you watch this in the replay this evening, hit me up in the comments section with your questions. I'd love to hear from you. And I'll be on TV tonight on News 12 Long Island talking about the subject with SALT and how the Supreme Court refused to hear the case. So that should be interesting because I have no idea what footage the news is actually going to use. So I never know what's going to really be on it. And you have to start thinking, did I say this? Did I say that? Hope I don't look stupid. I hope I didn't say anything wrong. I hope I don't look fat. Yeah, I say that. I know the camera puts weight on you, but man, I need to lose like 20. All right. That's it. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Thanks.